This presentation is on FERPA. FERPA stands for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, and it's a federal privacy law that gives parents certain protections with regard to their children's education and records. As soon as your child enters preschool, information is collected about him or her. The body of information grows throughout the child's academic career, and so does the technology. Rapid advancements in technology have stretched privacy laws to the limit. So the internet now is in use nearly in all U.S. schools, which opens the door for instantaneous and widespread dissemination of student information. So when your student brings something home, first you should read everything that is sent home with your child from school or sent in the mail. Pay particular attention to the fine print. Look for terms such as personally identifiable information, directory information, and opt-out. Find out how your school defines directory information and ask for a copy of the school or district's policy regarding requests to access the education record. And always do it in writing. FERPA allows parents certain rights with respect to their children's educational records, which are maintained by the educational agencies and institution to which FERPA applies. These include the right to inspect and review their children's education records, to seek to have their education records amended, and to have some control over the disclosure of their education records or personal identifiable information contained in. So these are the Kansas City, Kansas Public School District's policies that they look at and review the student's school records within 45 days of the day that a request is made. And of course, a written request should always be given to the school principal that identifies the record, that will tell them who the child is, who the student is. And ask for a change to the student's school record that they think is not correct or misleading. A letter to the school principal should explain why the record is not correct and clearly identified what part of the record needs to be changed. If the school does not change the record, parents or eligible students have the right to a hearing. Of course, then they need to approve the release of identifiable information contained in the student's school records, except for information that FERPA can release without having permission. Parents can then file a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education about suspected failures by the school district to comply with the requirements of FERPA. Also, the school district may disclose appropriately designated directory information without written consent unless advised the school district to the contrary. Those could be such things as the name in a program for a play, the yearbook, honor roll, or other recognizable lists, graduation program, sports activities, and things such as that. Now, there are exceptions. In the event of an epidemic disease outbreak or a campus shooting, for instance, the school could legally share students' educational records with designated personnel and law enforcement officers. There may be some unintentional violations as well. So say there's vendors that come to school and they ask questions. The school should be aware of how the vendors are to ask and that parents have given their permission to access the students' records. It also prevents unauthorized people from accessing those records. If the school denies access to a student's records to a parent of a student under the age of 18, then that is a FERPA violation. It's also an inappropriate disclosure on a social media. That is a FERPA violation. And a school may disclose directory information to a third party if it has taken certain steps, including given parents and eligible students the right to opt out. Now, since this is the digital age, K-12 schools are already hard-pressed to protect students' data under FERPA and to keep students safe from identity theft, fraud, and extortion. So FERPA has been weakened numerous times over the years through regulatory changes, making it easier for schools to collect and share this data with large private corporations. And under the current law, a company providing surveillance cameras and software for a school must abide by the same laws a school lives by when it comes to protecting students' data. Now, when it comes to surveillance, while surveillance cameras have become one of the cornerstone of school safety and security plans, they also raise legal issues that can leave administrators in a quandary. Say, for instance, whether the recording is used for disciplinary actions involving the student, whether the recording depicts an activity that would necessarily result in the use of a disciplinary action, or whether the school intends to make a specific student the focus of the recording, and whether the contents contains personal identifiable information for form a student's educational record. So images of students captured on surveillance recordings qualify as educational records when a photo or video is directly related to a student and maintained by the educational institution. Now, when it comes to data removal, that could be another challenge. In previous years, it was all paper, and so we just took it to the shredder and we shredded it or it got burned. Well, now everything is all digital, and so the data should be appropriately managed across the entire data life cycle, from capture to destruction. For very low risk information, simply deleting electronic files or using a desktop shredder for paper documents. For more sensitive data, stronger methods of destruction at a more granular level may need to be employed to ensure that the data are truly irretrievable. So, a good message would be to clean, purge, destroy. So, when you are capturing information, make sure that you're organizing it, that you utilize it, that you manage it, and then you destroy it. So say, for instance, if I am using a digital copy of a Google Sheet to keep track of students' progress, I want to make sure that it's only on my drive, that I'm not sharing it with anyone else, and keeping it organized, that I'm going to use this data, and when I'm done with it, I'm going to destroy it. So there are some things that teachers need to know. FERPA prohibits the release of education records without the consent of parent or the eligible student, which are not part of an educational record. So say, for instance, private records a teacher makes during the course of teaching, they're meant for the teacher's private use as a memory aid. Law enforcement or campus security records create and maintain solely for law enforcement reasons. Employment records, unless the employment is contingent upon enrollment and attendance, plus alumni records, grades on peer-graded papers before they're recorded. So, make sure that we are clearing the data when we're finished with it. We're going to purge it, and we're going to destroy it. One thing that a teacher can ask is a log of a student's disciplinary history. Can that be considered a FERPA violation? Yes. What about a student's health records created by a school nurse? Yes. How about teachers' written notes for their own use? Nope, that is not considered a FERPA violation. Records kept by campus security, like in a vandalism situation? No. How about the teacher's gradebook? Definitely yes. And a student's transcript? Definitely yes. Most schools have a school resource officer, which is a law enforcement unit official who is an employee of the school or district, generally would be considered a school official to whom the school or district may disclose without consent education records. They may also be an individual, office, department, division, or other component of a school or district, such as a unit of a police officer or security guard that is officially authorized or designated by the school or district to enforce laws. So, we ask, what about these school resource officers? Are they under the same requirements of FERPA? Yes, they are, because they're considered a school official. And in order for law enforcement unit officials to be considered school official, they must meet the criteria for who constitutes a school official that are set forth in the school or district's annual notification to parents. Are school resource officers obligated to inform immigration about students that are not legal in this country? No, SROs are not required to report undocumented students. However, there is a limited exception that could apply if the SRO is employed by your school district through the county's local law enforcement and there exists an extraordinary circumstance involving public safety. SROs generally have no role in removal of undocumented students. An ICE bureau is permitted to have access to student records in order to monitor the stay of international students pursuant to the Students Exchange and Visitor Information System. But they are not allowed just to go into schools and start checking the status of most students in the school. This is a very good poster that are 8 ways to ensure your school is FERPA compliant. Raise FERPA awareness, confirm that FERPA applies to you, know the rights, protections, and exceptions. Choose compliant vendors. That is an extremely important feature, especially with all the technology that is in our schools. Train all school employees. Train all employees, everyone from the custodians to the nurses to the lunch ladies to the teachers to the administration. Everyone should be trained. Implement compliant policies and procedures and encrypt files and emails. It's very important for school districts to have the utmost security when it comes to their data. And then implement other prevention tools. If you have any other questions, you may contact https://studentprivacy.ed.gov and to file a complaint /file a complaint.